right, so hi, Soul Family, and welcome to my channel. I'm your host, Haji, and this is NDE Talk. And then today our guests are hosts. So we have a show here with three hosts. The first is Loretta of Loretta Sharing Group. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, Loretta Sharing Group. And then we have Lamont Gates of Real Spiritual Talk. Right. Welcome, Lamont and Loretta.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's a pleasure.
Okay. Well, my first question, which I think will help to kind of break the ice and ensure that everybody knows who you guys are, who we are, is where's my questions? Okay. So, what made you take this path and go on this mission to become a host, a spiritual, YouTube channel host?
Who first? Who first?
You, go ahead.
Okay. Again, thank you for the invitation, Haji. An honor. So nice to meet you, Lamont. Excited to be here, y'all. This is such a transformative time. So I applaud you all. I got in this spiritual space because, Haji, you and I talked a little bit, and I'm transparent about this, is I had like suicidal ideation. Horrible custody battle that would not end. And I started to get severely depressed. And I started getting these videos of these near-death experiences, these amazing experiences from folks who had gone to the other side and had come back. And it wasn't, and when you are in that space, where you are in your darkest hour, it wasn't, I have no problem with religion, but it wasn't religion that I felt like I needed. I didn't pull for it. I wanted, it was something about the near-death experiences that just blew all the fog away, right? No matter atheist, no matter what religion, no matter what color, folks were going on the other side and having these amazing, and experiencing this love and coming back to say, I'm homosexual. I didn't go to hell. God didn't, all this and that. And it just blows away the fog. And the biggest reason why I've attached to this is it takes away the conditioning that we've all been exposed to, right? The smallness, the I'm born in sin and that kind of thing, the fear-based beliefs that we have. And we're able to kind of reset in this environment and hear from people who have seen and experienced the divine love. And so that's why I'm in this space. What about you, Lamont?
That's a very moving account, and I think that's the real reason and the real after effect of near-death experience accounts. Even for those who didn't have a near-death experience, right? There's always somebody out there looking for something, and you were one of them. And not only did it transform you, it transformed your activity. You now interview people who have near-death experiences, and I guess to continue to spread that message. My approach to it was a little bit different. I will tell you, in the age of about 9 or 10, I was in 4th grade, and my 4th grade teacher walked to the front of the classroom, and she had told us a story about a classmate who wasn't there that day because his mother was undertaking surgery. And she told us that while his mother was in surgery, something had went awry, and they lost her on the table. And when she came out of the surgery, she said she was in this beautifully brightly lit place with white birds flying everywhere. It was like paradise. She knew she had went to heaven. Now, at the time, I was, like I said, 9 or 10 years old. I grew up in a culturally Christian household here in New Jersey. And so the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, the pastors were right. There is a heaven. And fast forward to age 12, I remember I was helping a nun rearrange a library section. It was a place called the Learning Center that all of us children used to go to after school. They had video games, you can do your homework, etc. So I got there early one day. I forget why. Maybe I didn't go to school, but she said, all right, since you're here, why don't you go arrange the books before the other kids come? So I go over to her library, and I come into contact with this book. I don't exactly remember the title of it. I was about 12 years old at this time. Something about what happens after death. I don't believe it was Dr. Moody's classic, but it was something along those lines. So I said, wow, that's interesting. So I opened up to a random page, and the very first line I remember jumped right off of the book, and it said, "And I was moving quickly through a dark tunnel." Now I slammed that book shut, threw it right back on the shelf, because in my mind I'm like, oh my goodness, the pastor was right again. There is a hell. You know, I interpreted that darkness, that tunnel, to be a hellish space. Needless to say, I put all this in the back of my mind. I grew into a teenager, into a young adult, and I started getting interested in religion and spirituality, biblical studies, things of that nature. Because again, I come from a culturally Christian nation, we all do, and traditional Christianity constantly throws at you, like you said, Loretta, the fear-based religion. So I wanted to know more about this. Like, is my soul really in that much danger? What have I done so bad? So I really got serious in things like biblical studies, to the point of studying the biblical languages, Hebrew, Koine, Greek, Aramaic, etc. And I did this for a long time, and unfortunately, I became a part of the division. I became a part of someone who thought God loved him more than he loved the rest of the world. It wasn't until like later on that, you know, more of these NDE videos started to approach the internet, and I was able to come in contact with the book, Life After Life by Dr. Moody, and I ordered the book, and as I read it, I was brought back to my 4th grade and the nun situation. I said, wait a minute, I heard something similar to this a long time ago. So I read the book very objectively because I realized that these were experiences, not belief systems. So these people weren't coming here making up stories. What they saw is what they saw. So after reading Dr. Moody's book and being very fulfilled by it, I continued studying and reading more near-death experience accounts, and to the point where I realized that, you know what? I think I want to start interviewing some of these people myself. And that's what I did starting in the year 2020. Real Spiritual Talk Radio was born, and it lives on to this day.
Wow, that's
awesome.
powerful. That's wow. So it really was very, very much a part of your purpose. It was, that concept was introduced to you when you were a kid.
I think so, but like many kids, many human beings who think linear, or our brains are finite, we get distracted by our environment,
Yeah.
right? You put things in the back burner. You don't, you know, you have an entire life to live. You're growing up, you want to play basketball with your friends, you want to experience high school, you want to go to college. And I did all those things.
Yeah.
And it was around college is when the religiosity came out of me, right? This preaching of division, and I believed it. I bought into that. Wait a minute. So God loves me if I say this prayer, but he doesn't love them. And I went out on this crusade, right? Very similar to the crusades back in the 11th century, right? That conquered Jerusalem. And I preached this nonsensical, you know, division, and come to find out, when you really delve into near-death experiences, as you said earlier, God loves everyone, regardless of who you are, what you are, from where you're from, what your religious belief systems are, what your non-religious belief systems are. It's the rabbit hole runs much deeper than your surface religion.
Yes.
I'm
so glad he's saying this. Right?
Yes. Yes. It's a truth. I think it's a truth that not enough people know yet, but I think people are starting to come to it.
Yes. And y'all are all a part of spreading the word. I love that. What about you, Haji? How did you get in this space?
Well, first, I must say that it's just so weird how things play out, because just today I kind of had a back and forth with somebody who was commenting on my channel about religion, and kind of like trying to convert me to Islam. I mean, I grew up Muslim, was very strict about religion, but, you know, just like you guys, well, like Lamont in that respect. And it's only because it's like our natural, when we first come into this world, like we're kind of fresh from heaven or from the other side, you know? So we have that connection to God, or that desire to be connected to God. So whatever's given to us from our parents and from society is what we hold on to. And I think that's why I was so very strong about that religion. It wasn't anything about that particular religion. It's just like, this is my way to be with God. Okay, I'll take it, you know? But it's just so weird that, you know, this person was, you know, gravitating towards my channel, which I feel is as completely not religious as possible. And I'll explain why I make it that way. So the way I started in this, I believe it was probably around when COVID, when, the C word hit, you know, I was going through, and I'm not even going to get into detail, like, you wouldn't even believe, like, movie style type situations where I was living at. It was very dangerous. I was being attacked by neighbors pretty much daily. And it was very, very not a good place to be. So at the time, I I was living alone. I was just starting to live alone. I just broke up with my ex, and I was in a very dangerous neighborhood. And I had a dream. My biggest kind of fear was somebody coming in the back window. I had them locked off, but that was always like in the back of my mind. And so I had what I thought was reality. It was so real. I thought it was real that someone was breaking in that window, and I was like, oh no, 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 no. So in the dream, I'm like, look, you don't want this. Like, don't come here. You don't want this, right? So I'm saying that, and I'm getting up, and I'm like looking for something to protect myself. And as I'm coming, in between that window and myself is the living room. So I was going to the living room. And I'm still saying, look, I don't want to have to hurt anybody. Like, you don't want this. So as I'm going into the living room, all of a sudden I see who's coming at me, and it's me with half my face in shadow.
Mm.
And I woke up immediately. And again, this is not a dream. Like, you know when something's a dream and when something's not. So I consider this a vision. This was a vision from above. And it was telling me that if I keep fighting fire with fire, I will become fire. I will become what I am fighting against. Like, you cannot do that. Once it's like, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. All those type adages. So I learned that immediately. It stopped granted, I was not the one initiating anything, but I stopped cold turkey. Like, they could do whatever they wanted. And people think, okay, how does that work? Like, you just probably got beat up. No. As soon as my energy changed, and it sounds weird, they didn't stop the attack, but they gradually stopped, and I never got hurt in any of it. So there is some truth into that, in that passivity, that maybe it is the key. And so right after that, I also had problems eating meat. Like, I really was struggling eating meat. Like, it really became something I just abhorred. And I've never had an issue with that at all. I was quite the carnivore. So this was very weird for me. So, and this is all happening around the same time. And, other weird stuff, like I felt energies coming around me, like very strong energies. I didn't know anything about energy, vibration, anything. I just knew that there was a being, and nothing negative. Thank God I've always had, like, I feel like I'm highly protected spiritually, but an extremely powerful being in the room with me at certain points. And flashing lights, and then what pushed me towards NDEs, because this was all just a spiritual awakening, I guess. It's one of many. But what pushed me towards NDEs is that one day I was just watching TV, and all of a sudden it's like I didn't hear a voice. I can't say that I've actually heard a voice, but it was more like, I can't explain it other than like a nudge, but a download or a knowing. And I'm hearing NDE over and over again, NDE. And I'm like, what the heck is an NDE? Like, why is this in my head? So I started looking it up, and I started to see the stories and kind of fell into them. And then, but not really. I was just like, okay, these are cool. Like, all right. But then I also started to hear the name Jeff a lot. And I'm like, I don't know any Jeff. Why am I hearing Jeff? So I looked up NDE and Jeff Mara came up. And then I started watching his podcast, very frequently. And so, and then after a while, just like, I just started to say, okay, I want to really ask some needy questions. Like, I want to be able to talk to these people and get into this, So that's kind of how it started. But I really feel like I was spiritually pushed, very pushed at that time. There were times where I was fasting. I didn't know it at the time, but I think it's the same time that around the equinox or something like that, I would just fast from like January to March without wanting to do it, but my body would not eat from sun up to sundown. I had no desire to eat. Wow. I was being led so strong, and I still don't understand why, because I felt like I was dropped at some point, because nothing's happening now. Like, nothing. Like, hello. But at the time, everything like, just the weirdest stuff was happening to lead me onto this path. And so even when I have days when I'm feeling like, okay, I don't really have that many views, like, why am I doing this or whatever, I'm still like, okay, even if one person watches, if it helps that one person, I have had enough of those comments where they said it was helpful that I say, okay, I'll keep doing this because I'm supposed to be part of this movement in some way.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it sounds like you had some really strong intuition going on there all throughout your life.
Yeah. Wow. So definitely, again, you were definitely closely tied to the purpose that you're in. Like, you literally was hearing the word, the letters NDE. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are not alone.
But you definitely seem like you have a strong passion and hunger for this.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, once I got into this, all I would talk about all day, like I know it probably annoyed the heck out of my family and friends, it's NDEs. I could turn ice cream into an NDE story. Like it's ridiculous. But the funny part, and I'll just say this real quick, and then Loretta, you can ask your question. But while I was talking about, I had been talking about it for 2 years and starting to get into making the actual videos, and I was talking to my mother about another one. She goes, "Oh yeah, I had an NDE when you were born." And I was like, "Mommy, we've been talking about these for 2 years now straight.
Wow.
At what point?" And my mother's known for stuff like this. She's just like, "Yeah, I just remembered." So she tells me, and I love to share because it's just such a weird thing. But apparently she passed while she was giving birth to me. Thank
Wow.
God she's still alive because that would have been traumatic growing up, with that as a backdrop. But she said that they gave her too much anesthesia. She went, all of a sudden she saw Jesus, and she saw him in the way, because she was born Christian. So she saw him in the way that the traditional white male, and then she was a little wishy-washy about the female. She saw a female at his side. And I have my own ideas. I'm sure you guys will probably have your own, but a female at his side. At first she said she looked like a hippie, and I'm like, what does that even mean? But then she says, no, well, she's like a Egyptian princess. Like she had like a Egyptian, like the necklace or whatever. So that woman, she like light brown skin, she was to his right or whatever. And he said, it's not your time. I know you guys heard this before. It's not your time. And he pushed her down the slide back into her body. Now, my mother is a big kid. I don't know if you can tell from me, but my mother is like fun, games, toys. Like she wants me to be her aunt. Like my mother's a big kid, okay? And so it makes sense. She even says to this day, it makes sense that God, like if NDEs are based on each person's personality, that he would be putting her down a slide and it would be something fun as opposed to like a tunnel. Or something.
Yeah, near-death experiences are, even though they're very similar, right? The subtitle of Dr. Moody's book is The Similarity of Experiences. They're still tailored to the individual because we all have our own exclusive lives.
Yes.
And we are all creators. You're right, Lamont. And we create create the experience on the other side, just like we create here, That is so true. There are similarities, but each one is different.
The question I would have had for your mother, Haji, and I ask this very often of my guests who say they saw Jesus, is how do you know it was Jesus? Did you ever ask your mother that?
Now, that is one of my biggest questions also. And, she said she can't say for sure. She just felt like it just was. And again, he looked like what she saw, like on the pictures in church. When her mother was a very strong Christian, so she had tons of pictures around the house, and he looked just like that. And so she just assumed that's Jesus.
Yeah, I don't necessarily doubt my guess, but I'm just curious how they know. Very often they will say to me, though, and I'm sure Loretta, you've heard this many times. There's just a knowing that goes on when you're over on that other side.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily. Sometimes you may have a question, and the answer cuts your question off midway before you even ask it, and it's just given to you. So, I accept that. I do believe that there is an advanced cognition going on over there that we can't wrap our heads around. And so when they say it's just a knowing, and enough people say this, you kind of have to accept what they're saying.
Yeah. But I'm glad you mentioned that, Lamont, and I do have a quick question. Like I wanted to keep this in order, but we kind of are flowing here, so I'll let it flow. But one of the biggest concerns that I have is like you said, is how do you know that was Jesus? How do you know that was God? How do you know, et cetera? Do you feel like there's any tricksters out there that some people might be seeing holograms or shapeshifters? Like, have you guys come across any that make you kind of go, something's not right here? So
what I often ask my guests is, how real did the experience feel versus this earthly reality? And they will say to you that it was more real than real. The word is hyper real, to the point where you can't be deceived because the communication is so open. Like, for example, when people talk to the light, they say there's no way, and Dr. Moody wrote this in his book too, there's no way to deceive the light, and there's no way to really be deceived because you are one with the light, and the communication is like emotion to emotion. I use the word telepathic, but they say it's more than that. It's everything that makes you what you are from the core of you has now been exposed, and that's that's the energy of communication that you're flowing to that light, and the light in reverse back to you. So there is a knowledge, there is a knowing that what this entity is and what this entity is telling you is the truth. Now, there have been people like Howard Storm who had a hellish or a hybrid near-death experience where he had a dark near-death experience first before he went into the light. And when you listen to his story, you can kind of tell that those entities are not for the benefit of him. In fact, they start to expose themselves. You know, slowly they may start with tricks, and then later on they'll get more graphic, and then they go right into violence. And very often, a person will call for God, and they will be, you know, taken out of that particular dark space and into the other section of the hybrid near-death experience, which is the heavenly one. So I just think that the nature of what you really are is always going to be exposed over there.
I love that. I have a question. Okay. So my question for you guys, I'm going to start with you, Lamont. What is your intention behind your podcast, behind your channel? Every screen that we look at has an intention behind it, whether it's TV, you know, the laptop, phones. What is your intention behind your podcast?
Ever since I come into contact with near-death experience accounts, I've just had a hunger for them. Each account makes me more hungry, right? So being able to directly interview people and gain this knowledge, and also have an opportunity to take their account and compare it to other accounts and see that we have a piece of the puzzle that goes together just excites me. It fascinates me. And I want to share that with other people out there who, number one, have been weighed down by religious division and fear-based religion. I want to give them an alternative that says, you know what? That's not the only route you can take. As a matter of fact, there are people with experiences, not belief systems, but actual experiences from all walks of life. There were people who used to be Christian like you that said, you know what? My priest wasn't telling me everything that was to be said. So my intention behind this is to grow, enrich myself with this, and to spread that out to everyone else who's interested in listening.
I love that. I love it. What about you, Haji? What is your intention behind your channel?
I kind of want to put a ditto, like completely what Lamont said in that regard. I do feel like we are putting the puzzle pieces together. These are stories that if you guys know, I mean, you guys clearly know, if you've heard enough of these, most people who had these experiences were either shushed or put in the insane asylum, you know? So these are stories that were hidden before that we are finally now being able to put together. I love NDERF.org for that reason. I think they are exceptional. Like, they have done extremely important work in bringing all these NDEs together and doing true research, you know, so that we could actually pull that information and data and start putting the puzzle pieces together. So I love that aspect of it. I think for me also, my channel is not just NDE. So I will have to say that initially, like my channel was called Haji Heals, but I felt people were triggered by hearing that, like, oh, I heal myself and and you know, I get a lot of hate for some reason. So I changed the name so people can just like get off of that, you know. But that's kind of my reason. Like, I feel like I am a wounded healer. I've always felt like a healer and a teacher, just naturally. And so if I'm true to myself, you know, I prefer to just hide from the world. I promise you, like, that is my go-to. I'm kind of doing it right now. But if I really stop and I'm like meditating, I'm like, okay, I'm here for a reason. I'm supposed to be working and I'm not doing my job. Like, that's how I feel if I'm not helping or healing somebody in some way. And so these interviews, I feel like, are part of that. And we get, in addition to the herbs and the frequency healing and things like that, putting that all together, I feel like that it's what I'm trying to broadcast to the earth, into the world, is our healing in regards to past life traumas. Apparently we pull those over as well. Our healing in regards to current life traumas, and our healing in regards to just love. Like apparently love is the reason for all of this. So we all at any point, I don't know that I've met anybody but I feel like, oh, they got it. They got the love together. Oh my God. No, I have not met anyone like that. So I feel like we all have work to do in regards to learning unconditional love. And so that's probably the biggest healing we all need.
Oh, oh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Agreed.
that's
100%.
it. Yeah.
Loretta, what is your intention if you would
My
say yours is?
intention, I got a little bit into this. My intention is to break down the conditioning, y'all, that we've all been exposed to. Even the conditioning that scary movies has behind it. At first, it was the church, and this is not to bash any religion, but a lot of fear has come from, right? Religion, fear of going to hell. That used to torture me as a kid. And it was the forever that tortured me, right? Forever, that I used to think, oh my gosh, what do you do with that, right? So much of our experience is rooted in fear. And so when the church no longer had their grip, then became the scary movies. You pull out the Ouija board or you meditate, something's bad is going to happen. So my intention behind my channel is for us to break free from those limiting beliefs that keeps us small, whether we think that we are small, that we're separate from this perfect being outside of us. NDEers come back and say, no, we are God. That has been a very transformative concept. It used to be blasphemy for people to say we are God, right? And so these downloads, it's the NDE experience that pulls us in, right? The story, but it's the wisdom that holds us there. And just like you were saying, Lamont, each experience is different and we learn so much. But I feel like we are collectively healing ourselves, hearing these experiences. I remember when I would hear them, I was not yet in a vibration that I could experience joy because I was so depressed, but it was doing something for me that nothing else could do when I was in that state. And so just being able to break free from limiting beliefs, I think is my intention. And like Haji said, oh my gosh, unconditional love, putting us in that vibration. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yes, that's an excellent intention, and like you said, the healing that comes out of it, and the freedom. It truly is freedom when you understand that. Wait a minute, I can be an individual, and nothing in the universe is mad at me for being that way, for thinking differently. That is true freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I'm going to jump to a question based on an interview I just currently did, and I just put it up last night. And I believe, Loretta, you interviewed this guest also. Her name was Wendy Harrington. She's from the UK.
Yeah.
And she said something during the interview that was very controversial. It would be controversial to most people listening to it. And I've actually seen this discussion on the Near Death Experience Facebook group sites. I don't know if any of you are have joined any of those Facebook group sites, but she said something to the effect of she experienced so much unconditional love, as you were talking about earlier, Loretta, that the idea came to her, and I don't know if she said this to you, but she did say it to me. The idea came to her that she could kill anyone she wanted and still be loved. I'm looking at your eyes bulging out right now. So I just wanted to, and I've heard this concept and argument stated on those near-death experience group sites over and over. It's usually split 50-50. There's people who go, yes, that's true. It's others that go, absolutely not. What about Adolf Hitler? Are you saying he got away with the brutal murder of 600,000 Jews, etc.? I just want to get both of your takes on that particular statement. And then we'll circle back and we'll get mine.
I'm gonna let Loretta go first because I am in shock right now. I've never heard this.
Are funny. I think okay, yeah, I did interview. I just interviewed. I love Wendy Harrington. She is number one, she's so much fun. I love her. Um, I think she said it a different way on my show. She said, there is nothing we can do that will separate us, that will put us in a space where we are not loved. And I love that because people walk around with guilt. People walk around with fear, right? What I get from that is, as far as what she said, is we are not our bodies, right? It is not of course, it's not loving to kill anybody, but we are not our bodies. We are divine beings. That is something that Jesus has said a lot. It's a whole thing where he's talked about, but why would I harm you for the body? We are not the body. We are carrying these bodies. We in fact change bodies in different lifetimes, but she would not kill because she is not in a vibration where she would even dream of doing such a thing, right? So I think, but what she was really trying to convey is there's nothing that we can do that we cannot be loved. And when it comes to Hitler, I think I read a book that said Hitler went to heaven. It was the collective that allowed Hitler to do the things that he was able to do, right? And a lot of times we need these beings to show up so that we as a collective can wake up and see if we're in apathy, if we're in inaction, because for a long time, the United States, did nothing while he did that. We did nothing. We didn't want to be involved, right? Until we could no longer ignore it. So what did the collective allow and enable and ignore? That was the environment that allowed him to do that. But there is absolutely, we know that there are consequences to actions, and we are all one. We are all one. So if I do something to you, I do it to me. And we know, as Lamont, that you talked earlier about, there are different experiences. There are hellish experiences. I believe, this is just my belief system based on my interviews, that we send ourselves to a place like hell. But yeah, that is a very layered conversation. I'm sure she blew your channel up when she said that.
Well, it just went up, so you two can go back and listen to it and listen to the actual wording itself. Haji, what do you think?
Okay. All right. So I don't know that I have a distinct answer, but I guess in answering it, I will just explain like the two different. I think it's two different parties that I've interviewed or understood. So for some people, they feel as if it's all a play, like life is a play. That the people in your life that are really hurting you, and I've heard this so many times, that the actual soul, when they get to the other side, they were like, no, I love you. I decided to do this so you can learn this lesson. And in that very grand scheme, in the same way that Loretta is saying that the collective is here to learn, and we kind of set up these really bad guys to help us see how we'll respond and what we'll do. If we see it as a video game, and from that perspective, then yes, a person who is killing hundreds of thousands is gonna get away scot-free because they signed up to do that part, and that's all they're doing is doing their job. As crazy as that sounds, right? Okay. On the other hand, is free will, and that there is the purpose of source, the collective of source itself, God creator, wanting to see who it is. But I think at the same time, I don't think it's just an experiment. I don't think it's as cold as that. The fact that love is the answer, and they keep saying that all they feel in regards to the source itself is love. I always tell people I feel like love is the choice that God made. that after all, because I mean, who knows? We might not be the first situation in the first, galaxy or experiment. We might be one of a billion because time doesn't exist on that side, right? So I feel like in this particular, like I guess after in its extreme wisdom and knowledge that this being creator has seen the worst of the worst, has been the worst of the worst, and said that doesn't work. That has an end. That is not infinite. It starts to cannibalize itself. Hate is it has an end. Love, on the other hand, can grow and bear fruit and keep moving and expanding. I like that. That makes more sense. And it's crazy that love can be an intelligent answer or solution, that it's just the right choice to make. And if that's the case, then we as a collective in these games and these roles, if we want to make sense of this whole life, then our goal is not to go and everybody just go out and start killing everybody, because then we're losing the game. The goal should be going towards advancement and evolution, and that is not killing. And if that's the case, then we have to have those safeguards in any game. If you start doing the wrong thing, then you're gonna have you're gonna have to pay for that. So we could see it as, and again, I'm going back to all the stories I've heard or read, it could be just an incarnation. Like it doesn't have to be a hell. I do think there is something there. People have had experiences. So I think that in the same way we are co-creators, we can create these hellish experiences. And like Loretta said, you might, if you kill somebody, just knowing what that really means on the other side, even if you signed up for it, okay, well, I did this and now I have to, I got to pay, so you kind of do your penance there. But in the case where maybe that isn't, maybe you really just don't have to, then I feel at the very least people are going to experience another lifetime when they are the one being killed. And it just is what it is.
You both touch on some really great ingredients of the near-death experience. One of them is the pre-mortal existence, right? The pre-planning on what you wanted to experience prior to coming here. But let's just say a person didn't pre-plan to come and kill. The question is, does God have unconditional love for someone who went on a murder spree, as Wendy felt that she could do and still be unconditionally loved? My response is absolutely. Yes, you are absolutely loved by that higher power. In fact, that's exactly where we all come from. It is the source of our internal being, right? Our spiritual self, the internal higher consciousness that's within us that leaves the physical body and goes back to that original place, is a part of that source. And so, yes, you are always going to be unconditional love. However, you both touched on, and I think accurately touched on, the point of consequence. Like you just stated, Haji, there is a such thing, and not only pre-mortal existence, there's also the concept of reincarnation in near-death experiences, where people have to come back, where Hitler may have to save those 600,000 people rather than, killing them as he did in his prior life. I interviewed a near-death experience researcher who said that, karma has to be worked out, and it can be worked out on both sides of the curtain. It could be worked out in the spiritual realm, which is probably much darker and more hellish, or it could be worked out in a reincarnated form here on Earth, where you might have to save that person, or as you said, Haji, you might have to be the victim. As Loretta said, there's consequences to everything. But those consequences do not mean you're not loved. After the consequences are paid for, you're right back in that loving state. So, and I know this is going to be controversial for people because we can only think in earthly terms, right? Hitler was evil, Stalin was evil, Jeffrey Dahmer, oh my goodness. How is it that these people, can be loved by something that's of a higher power that we all believe from our religions throw out consequences? Where they're not wrong about the consequences, but they are wrong about these people not being loved. They are absolutely loved. They just have to pay it back.
Yes.
Yes, that was a beautiful, that was a impactful question and answer. Thank you for that. What were you going to say there, Haji?
And I love that Lamont is saying that, because it's like, if you think about it, I tried to live my life perfect for many years. Like, I was a goody two shoes, and I finally started making some mistakes. And it's like once you get old enough and you make a couple of mistakes and you still want God's love, then you start to be a little bit more lenient about what you're judging on other people.
Okay. That's fact. That is
Yes,
fact.
indeed. Yes.
Want to close up? Because I mean, I think we spoke a lot. I mean, usually an hour is not enough, but we already do a lot of stuff out there. We can always do another one if you guys are interested.
I
But I
want to
guess
do this again.
This
I
was fun.
definitely
Yes.
want to do this again. Yes. Yeah, I'll be ready for you next time, honey. Yeah.
so. In closing, so you can pick up your babies. I'll just say, if you can just either give a positive message or what your mission is, like how you will feel fulfilled, like as if you have fulfilled your mission in regards to your channel, whichever one you want to do or both, and then how people can reach you. Loretta, go first in case we lose you.
I just want to say again, thank you so much, Haji, for having us on. This is lovely. This is lovely. I just want to say to everybody who's listening to this that you are divine beings of light, no matter where you are, no matter where you are in life, no matter if you're fighting depression, you are as God created you. You are just that bright spark of light. You really are. Feel that. Feel that within you, that you are that. And monitor your self-talk and recognize your courage for being here. Y'all, this is not an easy schoolhouse, this planet Earth. It is one of the roughest schoolhouses. And if you're here, you wanted to be here. And you are one of the greats. Everyone who is on this planet is one of the greats, and recognize yourself as that. And that is my message to everyone. I love you. Yeah.
Very awesome. I would say you may not feel like you have purpose, but please know that you absolutely do. And I know it's very hard for people to realize that they have a purpose in this life, especially with the advent of social media and things of this nature, where everyone's just constantly comparing themselves to one another and feeling inferior based on what they see. Half of the time, what they're looking at is just a fabrication anyway. It's just an image put in front and doesn't tell the whole contextual story. Just know that you are a part of something very special. You certainly have meaning and purpose. And a good example that I give to everyone was one day I was in my bathroom and my sliding glass to my shower just boom, collapsed. And I said, what in the world? And I thought it was something major. So I'm looking, and I found this tiny little nut. I said, this little nut held up this entire thing and made it collapse. Once I put that nut right back in, the thing held right up, slid right back and forth as normal, as it was brand new. That's exactly what you are out there. You may feel inferior. You may think you're smaller because you don't have the title, you don't have the money, you don't have the status. But if you weren't there, something would collapse, trust me. And keep moving forward. And if you have an opportunity to check out these near-death experience stories, remember they come from all walks of life. People who feel superior, people who felt inferior. The commonality in all of them is that they need to come back and love more, and that they also should be worthy of love.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'll be quick here. The answer to life, the universe, and everything is not 42. It's love. Love is the question, the answer, the solution. Love yourself, love others, and keep loving. And when you feel like you're done, love some more. You know? Thank you guys so much. I mean, this was absolutely beautiful. We're gonna close with Loretta's heart, but this was absolutely beautiful. I dreamt of this. I think it's even better than my daydream. Finally, something's better than my daydream. And I'll just have the links to your YouTube channel so people can see the greatness that you're doing. You guys are awesome. Love you, love you, love you. Enjoy the rest of your day, your week, and blessings. Tons of blessings to your channel and your growth, your success, because you guys are doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I can't love this anymore than how much I love it right now. We doing this again too. But let's come on your show, Lamont. We gonna come on my show. Yes.
Absolutely. This was cathartic.
All right.
Yes. All right.
Beautiful,
Love
beautiful.
y'all.
Love
Thank
y'all.
you.
Go pick up your babies.
Okay. Bye.
All right, bye
Bye.
guys.